is that on?
There's our diving champion, Jeannie.
Yeah, it is. Dad, is that
She
on?
got a 9.5 in one of her magnificent dives.
Big two out.
There's Chris.
Right on.
Steve de Wooster.
Dad, let me camera it.
Dad, man, you
Fort
said I could use it
MEIGS.
'cause- No, that looks like grass.
Teeny. This is the best vacation ever.
Jeannie. So how was your day at Cedar Point? Well, so far, most embarrassing day of my life.
During the War of 1812, the Indians attacked
Put that
this
book
fort.
down.
The Indians lost.
Gosh, I hear
There's
horses.
the monument.
Let's go.
Didn't shine it on me yet. Now turn it on.
What's the problem? What is full we're gonna carry? Why we just not gonna get?
Turn it on.
Turn what on?
Turn it on. So
Well, here
It's on. Smile.
we're carrying jugs.
no, it isn't.
We
'Cause
gotta
the red
carry
light's
these
not
when they're full,
on.
man. We can't stop at a gas station.
The red light's not on. Yeah, the red light's not on.
Yes, get your hand out of there.
Okay. My name is Beth Anthem. And here we are at Park Regulation. And I don't know what we're doing. Oh, Dad.
Pennsylvania commands taking part in the conflict at Fort MEIGS in the year 1813. An independent battalion led by Major John Alexander, the Pittsburgh Blues, 56 men, Captain James Butler. The Greensburg Rifles, 45 men, led by Lieutenant Peter Drum. Battalion of Volunteer Dragoons, Lieutenant Colonel James Ball. Westmoreland Light Dragoons, Captain Joseph Markle. McClellan Light Dragoons, Captain James McClellan. There's the entrance to the fort. Hasn't been totally restored yet. It's a pretty big complex. But to get close to 2,000 men in there hardly seems that large. All those holes in the fences were where the riflemen used to stick their rifles and look out in the field of fire. There's a blockhouse on the end of the fort. That's on the western end. Now we get a broader view. There's another blockhouse toward the center. Inside the complex, there's a couple other blockhouses. And we can't see the end yet. We'll go inside now. Walking through one of the entrances now. And here we are inside. Old wooden gates from the inside of the fort. Old blockhouse. I don't know if that's the original or not. We're looking north now. Those trees in the background are where the Indians were on the other side of the river. The Maumee River's just out there. There's our tribe. We're looking about straight east now. There were Indians encamped in those woods straight ahead. One of the largest Indian forces. Old cannon. It actually is more of a mortar. Looks like it might be a replica.
Dad, come here and look how steep this hill is.
Pledge allegiance to the flag. This is the worst vacation of my life. I'm only kidding.
There she is. Miss America. Here's one of the deep ditches
Tom, you didn't touch
surrounding
that
the
poison
fort.
ivy, did you?
This is on the opposite side of the river. But it's a good place for the Indians to come in through and attack the walls.
Oh, I'm scared.
But of course, back then there was probably water in there, so it was a little harder for the Indians.
Horses. Oh,
There's that mortar. This is the southern boundary of the fort. And there were an awful lot of Indians camped right back there in those woods. Bet you can't run up as fast as you ran down, Chris. Come on, I'll put you on camera. Let's see if you could run up. Come on, fast. We're gonna count. 1, 2, 3. Whoop.
Come on, Chris, just try.
Come on, Chris. Don't be a quitter.
I bet you can't get up to that patch of grass running.
We'll count.
Oh my gosh, you're hysterical.
Come on, Chris. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds, 4 seconds, 5 seconds, 6 seconds, 7 seconds, 8. This is the American side of the river, and British positions were down there somewhere with the Indians. The battery was named for Eleazar Wood, one of the designers of Fort MEIGS. There's a picture of what it looked like back then. A few more blockhouses on the river side of the complex. This is the outside of Fort MEIGS. You could see the river there in the background. There's the blockhouse, and looking in, this is where the battery was. The battery is large cannons. Bring the river closer in. All the cannon could reach, of course, into the river and even over on the other side. Interesting little anecdote about some of the goings-on at the fort right around the time of battle. It seems like there were court-martial charges brought against Lieutenant S. Lee. The specification: in refusing to have a tent pitched on the evening of the 12th of May to secure the medicine and hospital stores in the regiment, when ordered to do so by me, and saying that, by God, he would not attend to the pitching of any tent that evening for any man, or words to that effect, said the commanding officer. The court-martial charges against Lieutenant Jackson, specifications: for calling me a damned rascal and pulling out of his pocket a pistol and cocking the same, and swearing he would punish me on the spot. Well, we don't know what happened to these two officers, but officers weren't perfect either, you know. They didn't always obey the way they should have, but there were a lot of other things that may have led up to that. Who knows? Another wooden boardwalk, blockhouse, another gate were along the inner western portion of Fort Meigs, now facing the river. Once again, these hills are called ramparts. They were inside fortifications that soldiers could hide behind and shoot from if the enemy scaled the fence. This was the Croghan Battery, looking across the river. The battery projected from the stockade so that its cannon could fire on enemy troops charging the fort. During the two sieges, cannon from this battery fired at British positions across the Maumee River. So the British were encamped over there somewhere. The British positions were right about where those trucks are going across now, right in there somewhere. And 13. 4 of the batteries were located across the Maumee River in what is today the city of Maumee, and 2 were placed on the east of Fort Meigs, where the Perrysburg Cemetery is now located. British gunners bombarded the fort with howitzers, 6-pounders, 12-pounders, and 24-pounder guns. The British force numbered about 1,200 regulars and Canadian militia, and 1,200 Indians, led by Tecumseh. Tecumseh was a very famous Indian chief back in those days, and history has him down as a great leader and a great Indian. They sided with the British. We're just in front of that same Croghan Battery now, sweeping the river. This is a pretty well-fortified position up on a hill overlooking the river. But when the cannon are coming in, there's not much you could do about the shots that land inside. And that's how these forts were attacked, by cannons that simply dropped shells in over the top. And who knows where they would hit. Looking back into the fort now, there's the cannon, there's the ramparts. Very easily see how cannon and mortar dropped in here can cause an awful lot of damage. This is blockhouse number 2. It served a dual function. A 12-pounder cannon located on the lower floor made this blockhouse a major defensive element. Each blockhouse at Fort Meigs contained loopholes through which muskets could be aimed and fired. Muskets were the rifles of those days. They were single shots. During the attack in May 1813, 10 men from Ball's squadron of dragoons and volunteer cavalry were stationed here with extra muskets and cartridges to help defend the stockade wall. So there were 10 extra guys up there firing out of the windows on all sides. Now we'll move down the wall. Like any number of men, not exceeding 70, to assist in said business. That was a big bakery order. Captain General Cushing on May 5th, 1813. This morning, about 3 o'clock, General Harrison sent Captain Hamilton, Captain Shaw, and 1 other up the river to meet General Clay with orders for him to land about 700 men 2 miles above camp on the other side of the river, proceed down to their batteries, spike their cannon, and retreat immediately. They complied, but did not retreat as ordered. They pursued the Indians into the wood until about 200 of them fell into the enemy's hands. The captain didn't obey orders. The Indians trapped them. The diary of Captain Cushing on May 8th. We have not received any shots from the British this day, and they appear to be making preparations to decamp. In other words, it appears the British are going to be leaving. Let's see what happened. That's where they were in location to this camp. This was the Grand Parade Ground. It was used as a drill field and a place of assembly for the troops at Fort Meigs. Soldiers convicted of crimes were punished here on the parade ground. Probably a lot of them received flogging and whipping. And the bad ones were probably executed by firing squad. Right there, with timbers on top of it. And here's a little Indian girl by the name of Maureen. That's what a 6-pounder gun looked like. Here, Jeannie, go ahead and take pictures of everything and everybody. It's on. While I talk. This cannon is a replica of the British light 6-pounder field gun of the 1790s. General Harrison's Army probably used weapons of this type here at Fort Meigs in 1813. This type gun had a range of about 940 yards and was designed to accompany troops in the field. So 940 yards really could just barely make it across the river. It couldn't reach into the trees.
Wow, that's really nice.
Let's look at this monument and see what it says.
All right, Dad, how do you... Wait, I can't... Wait.
Is it on or not?
Chris
Yeah.
is way
Well,
over
then,
there by the river.
look into it.
I'll look for you.
Okay, take pictures.
Chris is way over by the...
Draw.
Yeah, I just pressed it.